Բարև ձեզ հարգելի բարեկամներ, Սփյուռքի ձայնը հեռուստահանդեսը դարձյալ ձեզ հետ է։ Այսօրվա իմ հաղորդումը ուզում եմ սկսել ձեզ ներկայացնելով հայ անվանի արտիստ դիզայներ Michael Aram-ին։ Նրա ստեղծագործական գործունեությունը կիրառական արվեստի մեջ, ինչպես նաև մեր արած հարցազրույցը այդ հայտնի արտիստի հետ։
The name of artist and designer Michael Aram is well recognized around the world. Recently, collectors, fans, and followers gathered at Bloomingdale's in New Jersey to meet with Michael Aram in person, speak with him, and have an opportunity to have their purchased pieces signed by the artist himself. Michael Aram's pieces can be found in many retail shops and boutiques worldwide and in any given retail stores. Michael Aram's work stands out for its uniqueness. Individually handcrafted, each piece is made with the utmost attention to the quality, color, and design aesthetic. While Michael Aram's work represents a perfect fusion of practicality and artistry, his collections of housewares are not ordinary objects of everyday use, but true and unique works of art. Michael Aram's work is appealing to people from different countries and transcends the cultural divides. His work speaks a language of universal art, and his design embodies the artistic sensibility liked and appreciated by people from around the world. Michael Aram is an internationally renowned designer who has lived and worked in India since 1989. Trained as a painter, sculptor, and art historian, Aram has neatly applied his diverse background to the decorative arts. Lyrical and often witty, his work encompasses a wide range of media and reveals a rich and varied source of inspiration: nature, mythology, narrative storytelling, and purified form. Aram's work is also a celebration of craft and age-old handworking traditions. It is the enduring fusion of these ideals, originality, storyline, and craftsmanship that has become the hallmark of this gifted artist. Michael Aram's work is also influenced by Armenian motifs of traditional arts and crafts. This influence, so vividly expressed in his designs, serves as a testimony of the artist's deep connection to his upbringing, his roots, and his love for Armenia and the Armenian culture. His work also embodies the essence of the artist himself, an openness, humanity, simplicity, and deeper inner spirituality. Having a conversation with Michael Aram is as inspiring and uplifting as his work.
Good evening. The guest of our show tonight is a renowned designer, an artist above all, of course, an artisan, successful entrepreneur, environmentalist, and very revered and important member of our Armenian community, Michael Aram. Thank you very much for being on our show.
Well, it's my great pleasure.
Thank you. I want to begin our conversation with asking you about that life-altering event that took place in late 80s when you, as a young artist living in New York, went to India and something happened.
The first time I went to India, which was when I was 25 years old in 1988, it was really a kind of eye-opening and mind-blowing, life-altering experience. I had never really experienced Asian culture, or certainly Indian culture, which is very unique. It was actually the craft traditions and just things that were being made on the roadside which really blew my mind. I had studied as a painter and a sculptor here in New York, and making art was always a very rarefied experience for me. And there in India, I saw these incredibly talented craftspeople. It was at that point that I decided to dedicate my career and my love of design to the Indian craftsmen.
From what I understood, especially in the era of late 80s to mid 90s, the trend of design was very polished, very straight line, very almost like an automobile kind of industry, stainless steel type of work. And here you come with a type of work that carries all the characteristics and personality of a craftsman, with all its touches, with all of its energy. How difficult it was to introduce this work to New York audience and to ultimately, subsequently make it successful?
Definitely a time when it was all state of the art, brushed stainless steel, very modern. And, my aesthetic has never been that. I've always been someone who loves nature, who loves organic forms. And thankfully, the craft techniques that I was working with, which were very age-old, very, I'll use the word primitive, but I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I just mean, very essential, very ancient techniques, just suited my aesthetic so beautifully. And certainly when I created the pieces I did and brought them back to New York and started to show buyers and collectors and exhibit them at trade fairs, it was a little bit of a revolution. I know now we see all these handmade products all over the place, but at that point 23 years ago it was very different for the market. People didn't know quite what to make of it, but I think whenever you make pieces that are nature inspired, are organic, celebrate the hand of the maker, that there's some kind of energy that's inherent in that handmade process that communicates to someone. I always talk about it in terms of something that's, neutral or neuter design, something that's devoid of feeling, or whether there's something that really speaks of that humanity, speaks of that passion, speaks of the energy and the hand and the sensitivity of the person making it, of course, as well as the designer and the design intent and, the tension of line and form that I imbue in the pieces.
Give us a little bit of insight about the process. And by that, I mean the inspiration, the idea, the product, because it is well known that all of your pieces are handmade and there are no two that are alike, so in a sense they are works of art. How are they born?
Yeah, it's funny when you talk about vision, because I always think about being an outsider in a way. There I was, an American Armenian guy in India, working in a fishbowl that was so foreign to me on one level, but it was that sort of outside perspective, I think. And I also think to no small measure, even our heritage, of course, influences us so much. I always talk about, how, if you're a young person living in Italy, of course, you're inspired by all the art and architecture that you're forever exposed to. But, for me as an Armenian American baby or kid, growing up around, around the dining table, around, family dinners, crawling on Armenian carpets and, seeing the pomegranate, seeing the tree of life, seeing, all the things which if you look in my work, it's all there. It's so natural for me because, I think because of the depth and the richness of our culture, we have so much, so much influences, certainly, if we're sensitive to it, and how can we not be? It's such a rich culture.
It's interesting that you mentioned our heritage, because prior to our interview, I was looking through your pieces, and an Armenian influence is undeniable. I think that's in our DNA, it's in our essence. And you already elaborated a little bit about the effect of Armenian upbringing, and I know that your parents immigrated and they settled in Massachusetts, am I correct?
It's actually my grandparents.
Your grandparents. And you have an Armenian upbringing. And it occurred to me that we also come from a tradition of craftsmen. Sure. And we are also an ancient culture. If you can speak a little bit more as to how your childhood particularly have come to play into your creativity today.
I grew up very much in the church. I was singing in the choir ever since I was a kid. My dad's the organist of their church. So, every Sunday I'd always be, at church service, watching the amazing rituals that we have, looking at the amazing, jewelry, church robes, the curtains, the altar candlesticks, all of that has really influenced me, not only from an aesthetic point of view, but also with the idea of object as ritual. Like for us, ritualistic objects carry so much potency. When you think of, the crosses or the chalices or, any of the...
They're more than objects.
They're more than objects. They carry a lot of emotional weight.
I'm curious to hear your opinion about current state of Armenian craftsmanship or design. And also, are you involved in any collaboration or any work in Armenia?
Unfortunately, I'm not yet involved in any collaboration. I was there 2 years ago. There was a TEDx conference which I spoke at, which was phenomenal. And I was able to see Armenia in a whole sort of new light. You know, the first time I was there was 1981, if you can imagine, Soviet times, you know. Which was mind-blowing for me, of course. And then I went, 20 years later, and then 10 years later. And
I've seen the progression.
I've been able to see the progression of the country, and I just think it's, at such an exciting point now in its history. And I would love, my great passion has always been to be able to, do some work there and, explore. I know the craft traditions are unbelievable. And to be able to do a project there for me would be hugely, hugely meaningful.
Where are you working on now? Are there any new collection that we should anticipate? Any new line?
Absolutely. The problem is, we're showing collections now, which I've actually designed a year ago, and I'm so ahead of my design schedule. I'm designing spring 2013 and Christmas 2013, believe it or not. So I'm really a little confused in my head about what's new.
It's busy time.
But what new projects we have, which are hugely exciting for me at the moment, are a jewelry collection, which I've been, waiting to do and anticipating, its arrival for many years, which I'm very passionate about. When you think about the skill of the Armenian jewelers over the centuries, it seems like a natural to be working in that material as well, and I'm very excited about that. And I'm also going to be launching some porcelain dinnerware within the year, which I'm very excited about. So there's, not only new designs, but new, categories for me, new materials for me, which I'm super, super excited about.
My final question, and this perhaps, I'm asking this question for our audience in Armenia, or perhaps our young audience in Armenia. Undoubtedly, there's a large volume of talented and aspiring designers that would like to bring their product to the world stage. And I think an advice from you would be quite valuable. What would you advise these young artist?
It's funny because I just gave an interview for Cosmo magazine in Armenia, and they asked me the same exact question. And my answer.
We need your advice. That's why.
I always say, small is beautiful. If you have passion for something, just do it. Don't be afraid. Don't feel limitations. Don't. Listen to people when they tell you you can't do it, or you need more money, or you need more infrastructure, whatever. Just, if you have a passion for it, start it, however small it is, whether it means, selling it at the Sunday, at the Sunday market in Yerevan. Make your things, do it with, all your heart and put all your passion into it. It's bound to have meaning for people, just don't be afraid of getting out there and doing it. And, we live in a very small world today. Technology. I'm involved with an organization called Children of Armenia Fund, and we're renovating schools in Armenia. And you go into those schools and you see these students, and they're on the internet, and they're competing in international competitions. And the world now it's a global stage. Anyone can participate, and we should never feel limited. It's just about ideas and about passion.
It's interesting listening to you. There's an Armenian saying that came to my mind. I'll say it in Armenian, then I'll translate for our audience. They say, "Tashats kare getnin chi mena," which means a good stone won't stay unnoticed.
Absolutely.
So your advice is very valuable, because ultimately, seeing your work, it's clear that it's driven from passion,
right,
and it's driven from love, and that's why it stands out, and that's why it's original.
I would say one more thing, and it goes back to sort of being true to yourself. Be who you are. We can't be other people. We can't pretend to be something else. Take pride in your inspiration. Take pride in your origin. Take pride in your culture. Let it reflect. It'll be so true and so pure that it's bound to touch people. I have Iranian customers, Greek customers, Jewish customers. They come to me and they say, "You've designed this for us.
It's universal.
How did you understand this is art? It's a reflection of who we are." And it's just because it's a true reflection of who I am that I think it reverberates with other cultures as well. If you try to do something thinking this is going to appeal to so-and-so, or this is going to be this or that, it's just very hard. You have to be authentic.
I hope this interview was as inspiring for our audience as it was for me.
Thank you so much.
Michael, thank you so much for this interview. Best of luck in your endeavors, and we are proud to have you among ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Wonderful meeting you.
Thank you.